Hi, I'm Tim Marshall. Thank you for joining us for the R&B Showcase. We have a special guest in the building. He's a radio host, a super mixer, a producer, and he's been on just about every radio station in Philadelphia. You're going to let him tell you more about it. Our special guest is Joe Too Cool Callari. Let's welcome him to the show. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm glad to have you here with us here today. How's everything going, man? You got a lot of things happening in this industry. Tell us about it.
I have a couple songs that are out right now with a group out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Called the Electra Women.
Okay.
Actually, they're called the Electra Queens.
Electra Queens.
They were called the Highway Women.
Okay.
And so I get confused on that sometimes.
All right.
But new album. The first single is called Walk Away. It was a song that Tony and I wrote together, Tony Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And the second single, I don't know when that's coming out, probably later this year. I'd Rather Be Alone. That's what that one's entitled.
Okay.
And I'm working on another artist out of Philadelphia called Hot Chalk.
All right.
It's a female rapper.
Okay.
And looking forward to that. That literally was a song that I wrote in 1986.
Wow. Okay.
That she came across and decided that she wanted to redo it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking forward to that. So those things are working, and always in the studio writing new material, and always listening and trying to get better.
Well, you've been at it for a while. How long have you been in the game, Joe?
Over 40 years.
40 years. Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
To be in this business for 40 years. And I know the industry has changed a lot over the years. But tell us how you got started. How did you become a DJ?
Well, I was one of those kids that, everybody, if they heard a song on the radio, they didn't know who it was. And, of course, they would come to me. I would know who the singer was, who produced it, who wrote it. So I was always the kid that knew all the music on the radio. And, of course, it was a completely different time back then. But it was something that was natural to me. So getting involved early on, and the way it happened for me, I was working in a little local bar, and the owner was got intrigued with how much I knew about music and said, "You're going to be our DJ on Tuesday night." And that's basically how it started.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I just started playing in a local place in Pennsauken.
Okay.
And then that grew into, eventually getting on Power 99 and becoming a Billboard reporter and, writing songs for major record labels. And it was just crazy how that sequence went. They say things are meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it was.
How about the name Joe Too Cool Callari? How'd you come up with this name?
Well, that was Tony Luke Jr.
Okay.
And I'm sure you're familiar with Tony Luke's in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Well, Tony and I started writing together in the mid 80s. And the way that came about with he and I was he had songs that were out by an artist called Brandy Wells, who was from Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I had been writing an article for the South Philly Review.
Okay.
And I got a hold of this song called I Never Loved This Way. And I really liked the song. And Brandy Wells was a local artist on Atlantic.
Okay.
So she was, I was doing an interview with her. And she said, "Oh, well, the song was written by someone local." And I was like, "Really?" So once I got to find out it was Tony, and his real name was Lou Sidonio.
Okay.
He and I hooked up. And at that point, I hadn't started writing yet. I was just DJing.
Okay.
And so from his influence on me, I started writing. And we started a production company together. And we were sitting in a restaurant somewhere and trying to come up with a name. And he was like, "Well, what about Too Cool?" He goes, "There's two of us. We're both cool." So the name stuck with me on the radio, but he was the one that actually came up with the name because it was for Too Cool Productions.
Okay.
And so when our first single came out, it was John Mons actually on Power 99.
Okay.
They had played the song on Power 99, and he was like, "This is Joe Too Cool Callari." And from that point, it just stuck. And it's been with me ever since.
Now, you mentioned Power 99. You are one of the few DJs that I know has been on just about every station in Philadelphia. I mean, tell us the stations you've been on in this market.
Well, started out with Wi-Fi actually, and then it went to Eagle 106.
I remember that. Yes, you're taking us back now, Joe.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, Eagle.
I was with J-Bo Jones.
Okay.
And then that led to there was a little station in South Philly. I don't even remember the name of it, but that led to Power 99.
Okay.
Because from there, I got to meet Frank Serrani.
Okay.
And Frank and I both worked at a nightclub, Francine's in Cherry Hill.
Okay.
And Bob Pantano was there.
All right.
There were a lot of really good jocks, Nick Tatey. And Frank had heard some of my mixes, and he was like, Joe, I think you should do some mixes on the show. And he had his own show. It was #1 in the market. And I was chomping at the bit. And so he really gave me my opportunity. But from that led to Q102. That led to Sunny 104, JJZ.
Now, did you work with High Lit when he was at Sunny? He used to do a show for the Woodbine at Sunny. Images.
I didn't work with High Lit there. I was friends with High Lit, but I never. He actually had a DJ, Danny. I forget his name.
I remember Danny. Yes.
Yeah. But they were a great team, and it was that was just a great era. You had still the legends.
Yes.
Were alive. The High Lits, the Don Cannons.
Jerry Blavitt.
Jerry Blavitt. Well, he's still here.
Oh, yes.
And but there were so many great jocks back then, and I got to work with just about all of them. Harvey Holiday.
Wow. I didn't know you worked with Harvey. No kidding.
I did a happy hour with him.
Okay.
He probably doesn't even remember.
I'm sure he does. Harvey, don't forget. I know Harvey.
And I worked with Don Cannon on a Friday happy hour at Phoenix.
Okay.
And but I worked at a place in Manayam with Harvey.
Okay.
And it was just some of the people I got to meet and work with. And of course, Pantano was a huge influence. But of course, I worked with Butter.
I was going to ask you about Butter. He's worked at the place 7th and Arch Street in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, he and I worked there together. We worked Escape together.
Okay.
And we worked Pegasus together.
Wow.
So it was about 8.5 years.
How about Patty? You work with Patty?
Well, I never worked with Patty, but we worked together at Power 99.
Okay.
So
all right.
I believe we actually started the same year. And Patty is just, she's incredible. She was incredible at the beginning. She was incredible in the middle. And she's not near the end yet. She's still incredible.
Doing it. Yeah, she's a legend. Yes.
She is.
Yeah, there were so many great ones. And you mentioned Bob Pantano. And I know Bob Pantano had something what used to be called the Philadelphia Spinners Association. I'm not sure if that's still around anymore or not. But can you enlighten us about that organization and what it represented?
Well, I was part of it for a long time. And it basically, it's a little different today, but back then we had record pools. And what that was a group of DJs. We would all pay dues to one person, and it was like a meeting place where all the records came in once a week, and they would be handed out to the DJs in the area. So you paid your dues to whoever the director was, and he had a building. Bob was always over and above, ahead of everybody. He just was. He was a forward thinker, and he had his. I think he's celebrating 45 years now.
I think he's 55 years. Yeah,
I think it's 45
for Bob.
Yeah.
He's been on the air a long time.
Yeah, I think it's 45th year.
On the FM show.
Right,
yeah. But I mean, in radio, he's been
radio.
long.
It may be 65.
Right, maybe so. He told me 55, so it may be 65. He didn't say that though. Bob is great, isn't he?
Major influence on me.
Yeah.
The thing that I really loved about Bob and Butter, because I can say them in the same breath.
Right. Okay.
They would play songs that you normally wouldn't hear.
Yes.
In the regular formatting of radio. They were allowed in the radio station scheme to go outside of what their playlists were. And the songs that these two guys played on a regular basis really set the tone for what's happening in nightclubs. So that's why they were such a big influence on club jocks, because you weren't hearing, just your normal mainstream R&B or top 40. They would dig deep, and they would go into songs that you didn't have the opportunity to hear on a regular basis.
I used to like the ballads they both used to play. It was really nice sound of Philadelphia, Blue Magic, Sons of Robin Stone,
Absolutely.
and Got to Get You Back, and
Yep.
Love Is Just Around the Corner. A lot of those flip sides and that good quality stuff. Both Butter and Bob Pantano. And Bob would really go deep into the Tom Bell, Linda Creed era of music,
Absolutely.
into those Spinners albums and things.
Yes.
And I used to love that music.
And,
nobody was playing those songs.
No, they weren't. They were the only ones.
Mm-hmm.
And having the opportunity to work with both. I actually worked closer with Butter,
Okay.
because we would be in the nightclubs together. And, being able to pick his brain, or for him to ask me about songs. Joe, do you have this, this, and this? And if I didn't have it, make sure I got it. It really educated me on digging deeper into certain groups.
Okay.
And like you were saying, like Blue Magic.
Oh, yeah, great stuff.
Other than your sideshow, and they had a lot of great songs.
Yeah, What's Come Over Me, and
What's
some of the deeper cuts. It's good stuff.
And that sideshow was written by Bobby Eli.
Bobby Eli, yeah, another great Philadelphia,
who was a great friend of mine. And I've had the opportunity to sit in the studio with him, and really pick his brain and ask him how he wrote the song and how he did, because he wrote "Love Won't Let Me Wait."
Yeah, for
too.
Major Harris. Yes,
Right.
that's a good song.
And he was just phenomenal. And the greatest thing about these guys were they were just regular guys. They're
cool guys,
right?
Yeah.
There was no egos, and these guys had every right. I mean, I think Bobby had 4 Grammys.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenal writer and one of the founding fathers of MFSB. I mean, this guy is a legend, inducted into multiple Hall of Fames. But they always, for whatever reason, I know I was able to get. They took me under their wings, and I got the opportunity to sit with them in studios and pick their brains. And it was just phenomenal.
How about the South Soul people? Denise Montana, her father's label, Vince Montana's label,
Great.
#1 DJ. And,
I had a great story with Vince. I had gone over to his house. He was releasing a song, and I don't know if you remember Mike Polveri.
I've heard the name.
Well, Mike was a big time DJ, worked the Second Story, and I know that he was good friends with the daughters, and Vince had got touched through him, and I had gone over to his house, and I'm sitting in the studio, and he's playing the xylophone. I mean, this guy is like one of the biggest orchestral legends that there is.
Absolutely.
You don't realize it at the time.
Yes.
All
that music.
It was just incredible. And he's playing me all these tracks. And I'm like, maybe 24, 25 years old, not really taking in what I should be taking in.
Right.
But I look back on those times now, and it's just astonishing to me to see the legacy that these guys have left behind. It's just amazing, the amount of songs and just their body of work. It's just incredible.
It's such quality music too, Joe. I mean, the orchestrations. I mean, listen to the violins and the strings, and you just don't get that today. People don't realize,
If you never had the opportunity to sit in front of an orchestra and watch a guy like Montana do his choreography, you could call it.
Right. Orchestrating that stuff.
It's amazing. The sound, putting on a set of headphones and listening to an orchestra live is just amazing.
He really did some great work with the stylists and the Delphonics and the Spinners, those
absolutely
those groups,
Absolutely. And listen, the sound of Philadelphia. I mean, I got the opportunity to work with Huff. And I did like 3 or 4 remixes.
Wow. Okay.
With Huff and that was the summer of 2002.
Okay.
So I literally spent the whole summer with Huff. And we were over at, and I met Craig White.
Okay.
Who was,
Craig White is Kevin White, is related to Kevin White, who works with the studio here.
Really? Okay. Well, Craig is incredible. I mean, he was he ran the studio for them. So everything that came through that studio, he was producing or helped producing. And so I remember sitting with him and just thinking to myself, wow, the amount of knowledge that I'm getting from these guys.
Wow.
And Huff would literally come to my house and play keyboards.
Okay. Oh, wow. He's a heck of a keyboard player too,
I mean, I'm not jiving, I'm jamming.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. There's so much history, man, and right here in Philadelphia area. It's so much rich history that people just don't realize.
Know. Yeah. It's not appreciated here.
No, it's not. That's why I have guys like you on the show. We want to keep this legacy alive and pass this on to the next generation because a lot of them haven't been exposed to it.
Exactly.
So we really got to keep it going, So it's very important to get this out to our youth,
Absolutely. And Huff is a quiet guy. He's kind of reserved.
Okay.
But you listen to is when you get him, I know being in the studio with him, he comes completely alive when he gets in the studio. Otherwise, he's very reserved and quiet. He doesn't, there's not a whole lot of correction going on, like, coming with ideas and, because we work together on doing a remix of Bad Luck.
From Harold Melvin, the Blue Notes, yes.
The Love I Lost, I did a remix.
Okay, I know you did that. Oh, great. Yeah, it was good. That's a good remix.
Yep. And it was phenomenal. But he allowed you to be you. That's what I really loved because I have worked with other producers where they're actually, when you get overridden, it no longer becomes yours.
Right.
So you have to be able to have that maneuverability. And Huff was great at that. And here's a guy who's 2 times in the Hall of Fame. I mean, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Writers Hall of Fame, producer.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys have over 100 top 10 hits.
They wrote for a lot of people. Think about Billy Paul, Teddy Pendergrass, Harold Melvin, Gene Carn, The 3 Degrees. I mean, OJ's. Blue Rawls.
Yep. It just goes on and on.
And on.
It really does. And again,
how about Earl Young? Ever worked with Earl Young, the drummer?
Well, it's funny. We were supposed to do something together many, many years ago. It never happened. But what if, he's the king of the 4/4.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
the dance sound.
4 on the floor.
Yes.
I mean, the whole disco thing started with his beat. And that's Philadelphia. What came out of Philadelphia, it really, the sound of Philadelphia ended Motown.
I was getting ready to ask my next question to you. What is it? We talk about Motown sound because you had the Funk Brothers at Motown and you had MFSB at orchestra in Philadelphia. Yep. How do you compare that transition from one to the other? Do they complement each other? Is it an extension of Motown? What would you say in your opinion?
I think it's probably both. I think it's an extension and they complemented each other. It was taking you from that sweet poppy R&B sound of the 60s into the political part of the 70s. That's where I think the difference came in between Motown and the sound of Philadelphia.
Okay.
They got into, even though you know that Motown near the end, especially I think it was Norman Whitfield, he started writing the more political end of stuff, Ball of Confusion. And
great song, by the way.
Exactly.
That's one of my favorites.
Those types of songs.
Social commentary and psychedelic shack.
And of course, Marvin Gaye was always about that. What's going on and,
even Stevie did some too as well,
absolutely.
His songs in the Key of Life and Intervisions and things like that. So,
but the thing about the sound of Philadelphia was it was the strings. That's what gave the sound of Philadelphia its sound. It was the string sections. They had elaborate string arrangements, and Wake Up Everybody. Harold Melvin, Teddy Pendergrass.
But they continued with that the social commentary too in Philadelphia. And Kenny and Gamble were very good. Unity by the OJs.
Absolutely.
And, we're all in this thing together. A lot of good music, man.
It was they had the writing team of Gamble and Huff. I mean, arguably the best writing team of all time. I mean, it's Of course they're going to say you got
Lennon, McCartney, and
that goes without saying.
Lieber and Stoller, and
right.
those
but
artists.
to me,
Burt Bacharach,
Yeah, but that's more pop.
Right.
In the R&B world, and that's really where I made my bones, was in the R&B world. And I don't get me wrong, I love McCartney and Lennon.
I do too. That's good music,
I loved all that stuff.
Here Comes the Sun, all them good stuff.
But the R&B end of it, that whole writing, and Tom Bell.
Tom Bell. The Mighty Three, they called them.
Mighty Three.
Yeah.
And boy, they were the Mighty Three.
They were. Imagine all that music they put out, though.
It's
that's such quality stuff. Even Elton John came to Philadelphia to record.
David
Sigma
Bowie.
Sound.
Yep, they were all. Sigma is when you just think of the people that came through those doors.
Now, where was that? Is that the same one as at 12th and Race?
Yeah.
Was that always at that location, or was that?
It was always in that location. In fact, Joe Tarsi,
Joe Tarsi, right?
And his son just passed away, Mike.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
But and out of the blue and sudden, but they were both incredible engineers and producers. The things that they got to put their hands on, anything that came out of Philadelphia. And Tina Marie recorded there a lot.
Tina Marie?
Tina Marie.
I never knew that.
Loved singing.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
I didn't know she recorded in Philadelphia, though.
Yep. She loved it there. And
that's great.
And
piece of history.
Well, Doug Grigsby.
Yes, I've heard him, Doug. Yeah.
Doug was a bass player, and he recently passed.
Okay.
But he basically was the first guy who, when I was learning production, he was the first guy. I used to sit in his basement in Camden, and for hours, we would fall asleep in his basement.
Okay.
Back then, he was doing the Tough Crew.
Okay.
But he had already been played on and did some production with Stephanie Mills and Teddy Pendergrass.
Okay.
Doug was an incredible bassist and became the music director for Tina Marie.
Okay.
So when Tina would come into town to record, he would call me up and I would go over to the studio. So I would be able to sit in on those sessions.
Okay.
And it was just, it was incredible watching her work. Because she was a phenomenal writer, great guitarist, and an unbelievable
lady.
Performer.
Oh yeah, yeah, she was.
But that was all because of Doug. Doug would, include me in. I was very fortunate with the people that I got to be around. Early on in my career, it was really due to the people around me.
When did you first realize you had that gift to produce and to rearrange songs and reconstruct songs and make them sound really more marketable and for different genres of music?
Well, I think the remixing end came first, and I didn't even know that I was remixing because I was so raw and not really knowing. Because I really had no intentions of being in the music business.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
You're bored. You don't seem like you're bored in this business,
it was, I just really didn't. It all happened, I didn't realize really what I was doing. To me, it was, I was having fun. But, taking songs, dissecting them, changing them up with different drum tracks, and, that became remixing. Back then, I was just doing it because I was fun to take something and make it be the same but sound different, and then try it out in nightclubs, and it would work. So it was just it was like very shocking to me that there were record stores in Philadelphia, Funko Mart, Pat's
that.
Music,
yes.
Sound of
Market,
Sound of Market. There was a lot of them.
Sound of Germantown,
Right. Well, I would be, and I was friends with all the guys that worked there, but I would play these mixes that I did on the radio, and then people would call the record store and go, Joe played this mix on Power 99. Where do I get it? And so they would call me and they would go, Joe, what mix are you playing? And I would go, well, that's something I did. I go, what do you mean? Well, I did it. It's not a record. I did it myself. And they would go, well, we need that on tape or something because everybody wants to buy it. It was crazy. And, of of course, back then it was called bootlegging.
Okay. I remember the little white labels and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that stuff going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was just amazing. And I think from that, then becoming a Billboard reporter, the guys that you got to work with at the major labels, they would have different contests. And then, getting to know people, it's just like anything else. If a mix came about, they would say, hey, Joe, you want to remix this? Yeah. And then you actually got paid for it. And I was like, I've been doing this for free for the last 10 years.
Yep.
So it was getting paid was a bonus because it was never about the money.
You did it for the joy of the love of the music.
It was just, I loved doing it.
Can you tell us about, for a lot of the younger people that are tuned in and not familiar with how the Billboard reporting, what does that entail?
Well, it's a position that's appointed. You don't apply for it. So what Billboard, I don't know if it still works the same because it's been a long time since I've had any kind of talked with anyone who's with Billboard. But back then, getting to be appointed as a Billboard reporter was like winning a Grammy.
Wow, really? Okay.
It was
difficult to get.
It was the biggest honor that you could get. So, coming up when I came up, everybody wanted to be a Billboard reporter because you didn't get paid for the job. It was the perks. So you got all the music for free from everyone. And then there were a lot of things that the record companies would give you. It may be a set of turntables.
Wow, that's great. Quite a gift.
Exactly. It may be a free trip somewhere for the new music conference or the winter music conference, or there was a lot of different things that were going on back then. I'm not sure if they even if they still do them or not, but there was a lot of things that became available to you as a Billboard reporter. And so the way that worked was Billboard looked for the top guys in each major city, and they made them reporters. And what you would do is you had a call day. Mine was Monday.
Okay.
And from 10 a.m. to like 8 p.m., you got blitzed with phone calls from all the major labels. And they wanted to know what was going on with their record.
Okay.
And so that was your job. And then you had to make a list, a playlist, your top 25.
Okay.
And that top 25 really became the Hot 100.
Okay. Wow.
So it was very influential for you to do that. Now, crazy enough, I was an R&B reporter. There was only 6 in the country.
Wow.
So it was very important. And it was even though you had part of the Hot 100, it was really, we played a different format than what the top 40 songs were, being an R&B reporter. I remember Phil Dickerson was an R&B reporter.
I remember him. I remember Phil,
Don Mack. Don Mack was an R&B reporter. So it was, and it was...
Was Robbie Truncal, was he one of them?
No, he was never a Billboard reporter, although he should have been.
Right.
I mean, Robbie, to me, people always ask me, well, who do you think the best DJ is? And hands down, I've always said this, Robbie Truncal. I mean, Robbie was he was the whole ball of wax. I mean, he could scratch, he could mix, he was creative, he would play stuff out of the realm that you would go, oh my God, I can't believe he's playing this. That's, to me, that's what makes a good DJ. And then, on the other side of it, he was a great writer and put his own records out. And he was just a phenomenal, all-around, incredible DJ. Long before, we got into the scratchers and the scratchers of the world.
Today, yeah.
And believe me, there's a lot of talented guys. DJ Brand and Jay Ski.
Oh yeah,
and Touchtone.
Touchtone. Yes.
They're all phenomenal DJs. Robbie was doing all that stuff before anybody was thinking about it.
Okay.
So it was, and his creativity.
Right.
It would just always blow me away. And he always says the same thing about me too.
Well,
so,
yeah.
But I always say it all the time. He's a very humble guy, and still around. I mean, he's got to be. I mean, he was like 14 years old,
right?
Doing mixing at Stephanie's.
You were all part. Weren't you all part of Philadelphia Spinners though?
Well, he eventually became into the pool. I was before him, so he was. I remember listening to the cassette.
Okay.
And I'm not lying. He was like 14 or 15 years old, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, "Who's this guy?" Yeah, and I go, "It's just this kid. He plays at a high school dance." Like, oh my God! I mean, he was incredible. He was using a digital delay back in the '80s. So, like all the things that these guys are doing now and making millions of dollars doing, okay, he was doing that stuff long before they even thought about it. He was just way ahead of his time.
It's all computerized now, though. He was doing it, but he's on his own, and
Exactly. No, he was
talent.
I've said this a million times. The way the DJ, and I'm not, and believe me, I don't ever want to make it sound like I'm envious or anything like that, because you can only use what's in front of you. So, they have the technology now, and there's no need for them to, have to do what we did on two turntables. I mean, they have the technology now to do it. So I'm not saying that I'm not trying to make it a bad thing. They use what's in front of them. They have a lot more in front of them than what we had.
Exactly.
So we had to do a lot of the things that we did had to come from the creativity of the mind, not of the machine. So it became, and that's what I meant about, when I was talking about Robbie. He would just come up with things and do things on two turntables that they do now because they have the technology of electronics. He was doing it long before that. He was incredible.
Did I mention when we had Double D on the show not too long ago, and Double D said some very complimentary things about you. So you are the most organized and professional DJ he's ever worked with. So I want to pass that on to you. That a lot of the accolades you've bestowed upon other folks, we give to you. It's being one of the most influential, especially in this Philadelphia and South Jersey area. So we appreciate what you've done. You are a true legend of vinyl, man, and I compliment you and congratulate you on the success that you've had in this industry, all the radio success, all of those clubs that you've worked in, and being such a humble guy and willing to come out and share this history and pass the knowledge on to our young people. So before we go, any person want to say a shout out to today that's tuned into the show? Or
Well, I mean, I'd like to send a shout out to Tony Luke Jr.
Okay.
He's always been a great partner of mine since the early 80s. And he has an album coming out as well.
Okay.
On a different label. And so want to wish him luck. But all the stuff that we do together, I truly appreciate, his influence on me in writing and producing, and so that's who I would shout out to.
Also, so mentioned we both worked together at 89.7, actually, or 89.7.
Yes,
and,
that was you said that was what, 95, 96?
88.9 actually, 88.9, 95.1, 100.7. We were on 3 different stations, frequencies in the South Jersey area. So
that's
that was
right.
a lot of power for that station.
Absolutely.
Working with Drew Jacobs, and that's kind of where I met you there. I mean, I knew of you, but I actually got a chance to work with you at that station. So that was just quite an honor for you to come down and work with us. Getting that, help that station started. So that was a great thing. Yeah,
that was fun.
Shorty Rock talks about you all the time. A lot of the DJs that were there.
I miss Shorty. I haven't seen him in a long time, man.
He's still DJing.
Yeah.
Still out there.
Wow.
So,
good for him. Yeah, he was a good dude.
Yes, indeed. So I was hoping to bring all those guys down one time. We have like a little on-air reunion here. I think that'd be a great thing to do. I'm going to see if we can get that together and bring everybody in here and really talk about this industry.
Absolutely.
But I thank you for taking the time here and sharing this time with us here today on the R&B Showcase. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
And I wish you much continued success on your artists that you have out there. And just working in this industry, you're, like I said, you're a true legend of vinyl. And I thank you for coming down here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Tim Marshall of R&B Showcase. I want to thank our very special guest, Joe Too Cool Callari. And thank you for joining us for R&B Showcase Live.